That being said, welcome to the Drew McFadyen Show. This is episode 3. My name is Drew McFadyen. I'm here with Chris Salona and Ethan Shalloway. Ethan, how are you, my man?
Drew, it is. I almost said Chris because I'm not used to. We haven't had a Drew McFadyen show in a while. But Drew, it is nice to see your face. Chris, it is also nice to see your face. We're doing well. I'd like to say happy birthday to Drew. Sorry, Chris, maybe I should have introduced you, but this is Drew's birthday. So this comes out on the 16th. Actually, shout out to my younger brother. It's his birthday as well. So happy birthday, Elijah. Drew's birthday was yesterday. So happy belated birthday, Drew McFadyen. Everybody out there, this episode is to celebrate our producer. He begged us to come on. We said, fine, you can come on. He's like, can I please? I have so many topics I want to talk about. It's like, fine, you can lead. I'm just kidding. But we begged him to come on. I was like, dude, we begged him to come on because the people want more Drew. The 3-person pod is a beautiful thing. And I'm so happy that you guys are both here. And I wish I had my Christmas tree in the background.
The tripod is a real thing. We do wish you had a tree as well. But Chris,
yeah, man,
how the hell are you, man?
I'm good. I have to say, like 3+ person pods are all the rage these days. It seems, I feel not necessarily
tricycle.
I don't necessarily feel like rejuvenated since like I had never become unjuvenated. So I guess I feel especially just juvenated right now, doing this right now.
You're not pretty disgruntled, good, you're gruntled.
Yeah, I am gruntled. I'm not perturbed. I'm simply turbed. I'm good, man. I'm happy to be here. I'm just happy to be here.
One thing I love about your check is I do need you to tell me something that did irritate you recently because this is something that I know you have something that
I know you're talking specifically to Chris, but I have something for this too.
It's so funny. Like I feel like I haven't held up my end of the bargain the last several months on this show because they're probably from like episode 1 to episode 130. I was always coming on here pissed off about something that had gone on. But I'll tell you guys, I was in a horrible mood this afternoon. I was a little. I didn't. The
podcast was around the corner.
Yeah, exactly. I woke up. I was like, "Fuck! I gotta record a podcast today." I slept like shit last night. Work was fine, but I today was like my one day during the week to go out and get some Christmas shopping done. So got done with work around 3:30, 4 o'clock, and it has just been pissing rain all day today. So that kind of pissed me off. It's hard to drive when it's that rainy and everybody else is making mistakes on the road. And I was just in one of those, like nobody was really like committing any major transgressions while driving, but I was just like
irritable. I know.
Yeah, exactly. I was firing off left and right, cussing everybody out. And I just didn't have a good time. I wasn't in a good mood, but I'll tell you, the one thing that turned my night around, was getting home, eating dinner, and then having a nice like 3-hour window to percolate between that and sitting down to do this. It feels like a new day.
Time.
Yeah, because we gotta wait till Drew finishes his 6-hour haircut.
His haircut, yeah. It's so funny, Chris. That like sense of irritability when you're really irritable. Like I get that a lot. Like not a lot, but like if I've had a really long weekend or something, I gotta fly home. Usually it's like at the end of something, and then I'm in the airport, and it's just like everything. I'm just like, have these people never been to the airport? Like I'm like looking, I'm like, what are people doing? You've never flown, like, and yeah, if you're driving, like every little thing, and of course you knock something off your desk, like, and you gotta. It's just every little thing is just irritating you, and like I wish I could have like a code word. I could just tweet
serenity now.
Yeah, just so people know that I'm in this like very specific mood that everybody can relate to if you know what I'm talking about. We're just like, you're just irritated and you just want to like, you just want to get to the place that you're going, but there's so many things in the way.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And I don't know about you guys, but like whenever I get into that mindset, like I was earlier today, like there's always like 20% part of my brain that is trying to get through to the other 80% and be like, dude, like this is so irrational that you're this upset, but that just makes me even more angry, and it doesn't help.
Right. Well,
Shut
you
up.
just you recognize you're in that mood. So then it's like becomes comical because you're just like, look, this person.
And you're like, well, I'm in this
everything's
mood, so there's no point in not trying to be in this mood. So just fuck everybody else.
yeah.
Well, dude, I was with Ethan last month at a wedding.
We were. Just kidding.
And the day after, we're going like he's driving me. My parents were gonna pick me up. We went to a Wawa.
Yes.
And
I was in that
he was
mood.
in one of those moods, dude. And so, like they were like, I don't want to character. They were, maybe foreigners, a little younger or something, and like they didn't really know how Wawa worked. I don't know if they knew how
with like going
lines
up to the
worked.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were like going from this sandwich station to that sandwich station. Ethan was just trying to pay for his coffee. He's just like, and he's a bigger dude, so he gets hot, right? So like the temperature in the whole store rose because this guy was just getting hot, dude.
Yeah, they were two tweeners. They had like the curly like hair, 17-year-old.
Oh, like the haircut all the young kids have now, where like it's short on the side and like super curly on the top. Like that
sweatpants, Nike sweatshirts, some Birkenclogs, and I was like standing in line, and they just walked up, grabbed some stuff, and like stood right in front of me, and I was just like, what the hell? I was like, I'm right here, and I was just like. And something else happened, like the ladies, we don't do tobacco on this side. And I was like, why not just go? No, just kidding. Something like that, Yeah. But yeah, usually I'm like, like if you're a little hungover, you're definitely just more irritable and like the smallest things, just like, why is this taking so long? Certain things.
Yeah.
But it was, it's kind of fun. Like you're just like, it's like usually the in-betweens, like I said, when you're traveling or at an airport, you're a little hungover and like, time just needs to pass, and I was just like, I just can't wait to get back to like my resting place. And then like I have to drive, I have to do, there's so many things, like lights are taking longer than normal. People are cutting me off.
Mm-hmm. And it's always after the highlight, so like if you're going to a wedding, like going there, usually not getting to that temperature, but
afterwards you're just trying to get out of town, like you're just tying up loose ends. And that was the problem. Like my
get out fast enough.
Yeah, like my Christmas shopping earlier today, like it was none of the interesting shopping. It was all the odds and ends. Like I had to go out and buy the boxes and buy the wrapping paper and the tape and the cards.
Cards.
Dude, I was looking at cards. There was like they wanted like $6.99 for a card. I was like
$9.99.
It's ridiculous.
More than a dozen of eggs, dude.
Yeah, man. But don't worry, the new president's gonna come in and all the prices are magically they're going to go back to how they were.
I had the best economy there ever was.
My favorite word, tariffs.
Look it up. I
like it better than love. Yeah, that's beautiful. Anyway, this episode 3 of the Drew McFadyen Show, guys. Thanks for being here. It's going to go.
Yeah, man. We forgot real quick to check in with you, Drew. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing phenomenal, dude. I'm doing phenomenal. I am on the brink of being willingly kidnapped, I guess, because I'm going on a trip. I have no idea where I'm going. I luckily didn't have to pay for it.
Nice.
So it's like a willing kidnapping. So I'm leaving tomorrow night. And I'll let you know next time how it went.
I think last time you did this happen to you, you think you had to do a podcast edit while you were there. Is that right?
That is right.
I think you were in Florida at one point.
Well, yeah, there's been multiple times, but I think that's why we got to get this done now, because you're going to be on D&D for the next weekend.
Time is of the essence.
Yeah. So I'm doing great, guys. Thanks. But okay, I want to cover a few topics here. We had some shared, some not shared. It's not all going to be music. I hope that's okay with you. If it's not, no problem.
Thank God.
We're still going to do it.
It's the Drew McFadyen Show, so this is a different episode than usual.
That's right. But first thing I do want to cover is music related. I know it's not the end of the year, but it's the end of the year for the three of us on the podcast sort of thing. So year in review, music wise, and take it as you will. Could be what's your favorite new music, something you reconnected with. You can take the steering wheel, but year in review music for each of you individually.
Well, that's perfect, because the topic that we were going to discuss and we talked about was Spotify Wrapped. So that came out, and we are going to get to that. But Drew, don't you have someone they need to thank first as our producer? I think it's your turn.
Time to pay it forward.
I think you need to talk to some people directly and say thank you.
Oh my God! Did you send me the list?
I've got the list. Don't you worry.
I'm going to send it over. I like that. And then and then we will get into some Spotify. We have this day in music that maybe we can do later too, which is cool. Mix it up.
Yeah, man. This is good. Right. I think this will be the first time that I've it's not my wheel.
I didn't even know we were going to make him say the list. I just wanted, I wanted to set him up.
If we want to do it, we can do it. So I do thank you for teeing that up, Ethan, very much. I do want to take the time. I do want to take the time to thank the folks who fundraise this and fund this little venture that we got here, who pay my my beer bucket money. We appreciate you very much. That would be Black Hole Sean, D-Boat, Doug Endy, Eddie Vedder got me through my second divorce, Epona, Got You Chan, Jade Mercado, Jamie Lynn, Carlene Salona, Keith White, King Buzzo Stole My Hair, Michael Dooley Project, Millie, Nikki Six, Pile of Punk, Russell, Seattle 4 fanboy from New Jersey, Sherry Matthews, Abraham is the cutest basset hound ever, and What the Fuck's Up, Denny's. Thank you all very, very much from the bottom of my soul.
Bravo.
We appreciate it.
Well done, Drew.
I appreciate you.
That was awesome.
I agree. Let's do This Day in Music first. We'll get that covered, and then we can jump into.
It's an easy way to transition, but this is your show, so if you want to do it a little differently. But I did make sure we wanted to thank the guys at the top, because everybody listens to the beginning. They like to hear how we're feeling, and so thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Yeah, go ahead. Let's do This Day in Music. Go ahead, take it away, Chris.
All right. Well, we're going to start off with perhaps one of the most important events that we've ever discussed. On this day, December 16th, way back in 1770, Ludwig van Beethoven was born. Important tidbit about Ludwig's birthday. I was doing some hard-hitting research earlier, and it is not definitively established that he was in fact born on the 16th.
I love that.
The only record that they have is that he was baptized into the Catholic Church on the 17th of December, and evidently at the time it was customary to have your newly born child baptized within 24 hours of their birth. So most scholars agree that the 16th is Ludwig van Beethoven's birthday. And honestly, in my scholarly view, maybe he might have snuck in right before the 15th ended. I don't know. But happy, whatever, 200 and something birthday to Ludwig van Beethoven. If you're out there listening,
Beethoven.
It's older than that, yeah.
Yeah, man.
That's awesome. I love the idea that when someone asks you how old you are, you say they say that I'm 30.
Yeah,
because it's like Ludwig the whole time.
I wasn't there, man.
They say I was born December 16th. I don't know.
Yeah,
that's just like it's like that's what they tell me.
Just like your old Algebra 1 teacher, just because it's on paper doesn't mean
exactly. John Plummer.
All right, moving up 150 years, 179 years, that is. Billy Gibson of ZZ Top is born, so happy birthday. Looks like we got a bunch of... What did I say?
Gibson?
I'm thinking guitars.
That's all right, because he plays a Billy Gibson SG, so...
Exactly. Oh, this next one's big. Keeping him in the rotation. 1957, Elvis, the King, his Christmas album, which includes his cover of White Christmas, hits number 1 in America, and it goes on to become the best-selling holiday album of all time. Top of the charts. That's where we like to see the King at all times.
That's where he lives. He's a chart topper.
I was in the record store the other day, and I was looking for some Delicate Steve and this other record that I had, and of course they don't have what you're looking for, but they did have some Frank Sinatra Christmas albums, and I was so tempted to buy one. It was like $45, so I passed. But man, I would love to have some Frank on vinyl for this time of year.
Dude, do you have a CD player in your car?
Oh yeah, I do.
Dude, CD is still so it's a waveform, so it's the bigger thing. So it does sound noticeably better than if you would listen to an MP3 file. So I recommend getting some Frank CDs, toss them in when you're on a drive. Thoroughly enjoy it.
Love that. Is that better than vinyl?
No, vinyl's even larger file format. So that's why people still think it's the cream of the crop.
There we go.
But it has it has some of those like delicious blemishes that some people don't like, that you know, which you don't have in a digital format, but you do have, you know, some of the vinyl cracking sound and stuff, but the human ear tends to like it.
It's wholesome in its own right. Let's move forward about 9 more years. On this day in 1966, the Jimi Hendrix Experience officially begins with the release of his first single, Hey Joe, which is definitely got to be one of the classics. I feel like every guitarist, every rock musician goes through their Hendrix phase, and I think he informs a lot of the way that a lot of people play guitar. Drew, I'm sure you must have gotten down in the Hendrix zone back in the day a little bit, first picking up guitar, learning to solo a little bit.
Purple Haze was one of the first, with the name Jeff Zimmerman, an old neighbor of mine. He played guitar at his house. I was learning Purple Haze, an old neighbor, good friend. And Voodoo Child was one of the first ones I took to a guitar teacher and was like, I need to know how to play this, you know.
Oh yeah.
And I couldn't figure out how he made the sound with, like, you know, obviously wah pedal, and then it makes all sense. But like when you're young and you're just starting out, you're like, how do they make that sound?
Yeah.
It's so amazing.
I feel like Hendrix, for having such a short career, I think he passed away in 1970. So not even half a decade between his first single and his death. Like, there are so many songs in his catalog that, like, all around the world at any given time, there are so many like 15-year-olds who just learned to play it that could not be convinced that there is a cooler song out there to play on guitar. It's like the first time like you learn how to play like Hendrix's version of Watchtower or something, you're just like, I'm that dude now. Like life will never get cooler. And I love that.
Yeah. Incredible.
All right. We'll move to 1968, 2 years later. Christopher Thorne, guitarist of Blind Melon, is born. I haven't talked a lot about Blind Melon recently, Chris. It's been a while.
It's been a long time since we've talked some Blind Melon.
It's funny. It's just funny how many waves come with music and what you listen to. Last night I put on a Bon Iver album. I put 22 a Million, that album. I mentioned it like 2 episodes ago. I think
that's the new one, yeah.
2016.
Oh, okay.
The newest was an EP.
That in sophomore year of college or something.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And it was so different than the rest. And it was very electronic, which he is, wasn't known for that at the time, but it challenged so many things. And like, I remember asking people what they thought, and people were like, don't like it, not like the old stuff, blah, blah, blah. But like looking back, it's like, it is Bon Iver to its core. It's just different, experimental, and he really pushed the boundary. Like, it is such a good album, and I was blown away listening to it again. I was like, this is really, really good. I mean, Justin Vernon is like, he's one of my favorite guys in music. Yeah, some of the stuff he's done and longevity, I just love it. And he just does music. He's not like he's not too much in the public that I know of. And I appreciate that. He just does a good job.
Oh yeah, that's like us. We're not in the public.
Yeah, exactly.
We just do what we have to do.
We just record podcasts. Drew, do you want to take the next one?
No.
Okay.
Because I want this one.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
You guys can take this part. Yeah, you go ahead.
On this day in 1981, Ray Charles receives his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Ray Charles, man, he's the man. For some reason, a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago, I went through this week where I pretty much exclusively just listened to Ray Charles. There was a commercial that I saw which uses his song called Hard Times. And I was just listening to that album essentially on repeat for a week, which is pretty great. I've never really gotten into the Charles zone a little bit, so it felt pretty good.
You were on the Charles wave. That happens, man. It's so fun when you get into, especially the old stuff, when you know that they are super good, and then you listen to them and you're like, oh yeah, makes sense.
And that's the era too. I mean, they're putting out like sometimes like 3 albums a year, just like hammering away.
Yeah.
So there's no shortage.
Rip and roar.
Yeah.
All right, 1993, December 16th. Nirvana Unplugged is aired on MTV for the first time. How fitting. We recorded an episode a little bit ago, and then it aired about a month later. And everybody knows about that episode, what, 193? 192?
92 or 93. I don't know. I can't remember.
You can go back and listen to exactly recent. What we thought about that.
Yeah. There's a couple things, like anniversaries that I feel like happen more than once a year. I feel like every 2 months there's something about Nirvana's MTV Unplugged. It's like, oh, it was recorded, it was released, it was first aired, it was re-released, it was remastered. Yeah. Always the mastering. And then this might be like I hope you guys will pick up what I'm putting down here, but for some reason in my head, I feel like every 3 months people are commemorating the anniversary of John Lennon's assassination. Like I feel like that one's and then obviously it only happens once a year. It just happened like a week ago.
Of course, it always.
But like happened. I feel like it's always John Lennon's death anniversary. Like it's just happening all the time.
Yeah.
Maybe it is. Funny.
Yeah, right. Maybe it is.
That's what they say. All right,
could have been the 16th, could have not been.
Lastly, like I said, on December 16th, 1997, my kid brother Elijah Shalloway was born. Samuel Elijah Shalloway, who goes by his middle name. So I have a big shout out to him. I love that guy. You guys both know him. He's a amazing little hooper, and we love him. And I'm glad that I can say his name on this pod. It's been a while. I'll see if he listens. He doesn't, but and like I said, December 15th is Drew's birthday. So, Drew, do you want to tell a story about Elijah at your house around Christmas time about 7 years ago? Spark notes it if you'd like.
Well, real quick, I want to ask you before I get to that. Are you the only one? You're the only one that goes by the first name, huh?
Yeah,
was that calculated, or was that?
So actually, it's funny you brought that up. So I just also want to shout out to Nick and Brooke McMenamin. We've had Brooke on the show. Nick was one of our good friends. They just had their first child, and his name is Dean. But he was born on the 6th. But his first name is Matthew for his father, and so it's Matthew Dean McMenamin. But they're going to go by Dean. And so it started a conversation. I told my family, I was like, yeah, he just like a Shalloway, love that, good ode. And I was like, I texted my family. I was like, from now on, I told them about the news, and I was like, you guys just start calling me Zane. I want to go by my middle name, at least Ethan Zane. Like I want to go by 2 names, but like I think more people should refer to me as Zane because I feel like I'm missing out. My 2 brothers and my dad all go by their middle names, so. I'm Zane for now on. I don't know if it's a good time for a name change, but I'm gonna try.
Zane is such a good name. It's like it's too good to have on the sidelines like that.
People forget. Honestly, people forget they have a middle name. It doesn't get enough use. I think I've talked about this before on here. Like, yeah, it needs more use. Like, and people should have maybe 2 other names. 2 middle names. Why not?
Oh, yeah,
Catholics do, I guess.
I don't remember what year it was. I tried pulling the Audible with everybody. I think it's probably still elementary school. It was
with
like
everybody.
Well, with in my little world, my little classroom, I was like, I'm Will now, William. And people are like, no, you're not.
It's like you're not.
Yeah, you're Joe.
That's funny.
But what was that? Was that obviously your parents' decision, right?
Oh yeah. So I texted my dad, and he said that ship has sailed. And my mom was like, we were gonna call you Zane. If you came out with dark hair and you look like your father, we were going to call you look like Zane. You came out with red hair, and they wanted to call me Ethan because they thought red hair matched the name a little bit better than Zane did. Zane's a dark haired name, I guess. So that's one. And my mom was just worried. My dad wanted to call me Zane, but my mom was worried that Zane was a little too, too different, and I might be bullied or something because of it. I don't know. They were just like, it may just be easier if he went by Ethan. So,
and it was like, we're not going to bully him because his name is Zane. We're going to bully him for other reasons.
Yeah, for my red hair. And it's funny. Maybe I'd be I wonder if simply like the butterfly effect here, like if my name was something different, how much of a different person I would be today.
Yeah.
Because like
just watched that movie, by the way.
Really?
Yeah. Is it good? I've never seen it.
I thought it was very good. It was very interesting, thought provoking.
Totally. Yeah. It sounds right up my alley.
Yeah, not to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Well, I was just saying, like, if my name was something different, if it would have changed my life just for changing the name, like how much does that actually have on who you are? Because I do think that, seeing my life looking back 30 years, like Zane seems really appropriate, and I definitely could have pulled that off and be it. And I am a Zane, you know what I mean? Like that is actually my name. But like if it was my first name, it makes sense. I don't know why, but it does.
Yeah. No, I'm sure. I mean, again, it's all speculation, but I'm sure your life would have been different in some way. It's just
right.
People,
I wouldn't be able to be at parties.
People treat you differently, like by your name. Like if Chris was
Ludwig,
John, or Ludwig, you'd be treated a little differently. Wouldn't have been. You wouldn't have been stepping on the same stones. I don't think.
Elvis.
Yeah, exactly.
I just had a Elvis come over. He was a electrician guy. His name was Elvis.
Your electrician was named Elvis?
His name was Elvis.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, Presley.
He must have been good.
Oh yeah. Like, the king.
He's like,
he's the best.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But no, funny story about Samuel Elijah.
Samuel Elijah, yes.
I'm assuming you're referring to the night. I think you are.
Yeah.
But there were several.
Right.
But
this is the most noteworthy that all the McFadyens remember.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a few years.
It might have been Thanksgiving Eve, but I think it was Christmas.
Eve.
Okay.
It was it was Thanksgiving Eve. And we did a few years in a row at the McFadyen household with Thanksgiving Eve after,
the bars.
Bar that we would go back to. And this was, we were in college and we would go back and all the high school sort of reunion would happen. And Elijah, did he come? Was he in the bar, or did he just came back to the house? And
he drove us back.
He was our driver, and then he was our driver. Came in, and we were all going to sleep over my place, and we, I had a basement with ping pong table and a bar down there, and we were all getting a little rambunctious, and I'm a little pickled. I go to bed, and that's the end of my night.
But that's not the end of the story.
And me and Adam go up to my room, and Adam Pelcotti's been on the show, high school buddy. We go crash. I think there was one or two other guys downstairs with Ethan and,
Nick,
and
maybe.
Elijah. I think George, maybe an old friend too. I think Nick McMenamin as well. But I get woken up by Ethan in the morning, and he's like, "Hey, dude, I really think I gotta go."
It was in the morning that I talked to you?
Yes.
Okay.
He's like, I really think I gotta go. And I'm like, what's going on? Walk downstairs. My jeans are on the back deck, like fucking railing. What happened to them? I don't know. And I go in, and my dad's a little upset. And I learned that Ethan and Elijah wanted to make some eggs before they went to bed.
Yeah, I guess I should be explaining this because you weren't there for this part.
Yeah, you were the one.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll take it over from here, basically. So Drew went to bed and we were all up, and Elijah, like I said, my kid brother, who was in college at the time, so he was drinking. Was he 21? I'm not exactly sure which year this was. Yeah, I think he was. So we came back and we're like, we're closing down the party. I think it's just me and him up. And I was like, all right. I was like, the key to not being hungover, young brother, is that you have to eat something. And so, we're family. I was like, let's cook up some eggs. So I put the burner on and I just put it on high, the blast. So I was like, we got to be quick. Pull out some
2
eggs.
2 a.m., easily 3 a.m.
Yeah. We're just like, we're kind of jonesing, we're bouncing around. And I throw these eggs on, like probably no butter, no oil, and like super hot. And
it was on a French toast skillet, by the way. No sides.
Yeah. So immediately like burns the eggs quick enough that like, or not quick enough that I don't know how long they were on there, but like it just starts smoking, and all of a sudden the fire alarm goes off.
Oh no.
The fire alarm goes off. Me and Elijah are the only people up at the moment in the McFadyen household. And, we're just like, what do we do? What do we do? Take the eggs off? Like it's going off. And like, I remember like going, and I remember actually like going into the bathroom, and Bill, Drew's dad, comes down, and Elijah's just standing in the kitchen all by himself. And I'm standing there like, oh fuck. And I was like, and he's like, what, he's like, what, like, what's going on? And like, I come out and I was like, oh, sorry. We were just trying to make eggs. And he was like, holding back. Like, he's just like, oh, like guys, he's like, you can't do this, he's like blah blah blah, and like he's like, I went up, he's like, he grabbed your sister Grace and like took her out of the house. Like they legit thought the house was on fire.
Yeah, I mean the alarm's going off.
Like the mom, like his mom and Grace were outside, and like
was it
Bill
like a smoke detector, or was there like an alarm? Okay, yeah,
smoke detector. And so it's funny that Drew didn't wake up at all, but
he's tired.
Yeah, dude, we tried to burn some eggs, and then afterwards, I was so sorry, and Bill was just like, just leave, like get out of here. But I think we'd laugh about it now because it is a funny story, but it was it was great. It was a Thanksgiving Eve, if I've ever been a part of one. Yeah,
those types of things, that's the day they happen.
It's the holiday season. I remember, you just got to do it. Like when you can, you got to do it, because now it's not so cool. Like as soon as you hit like 24, it's just like, all right, or sorry, like 25 or something, because it's post college.
Like just to bookend it from my dad's perspective, he saw Elijah, and he said he was like, like a white-tailed deer, just like, looks over at Ethan, looks back, and he's gone.
Yeah, Ethan, you had a chance to tightrope out of there. If I just would have stayed in the bathroom or something, and blamed it on your brother.
Dude, I really put him out there. I was teaching him, dude. Sometimes
it's a learning experience.
Sometimes during those situations, and I think he learned for sure.
You're just showing your kid brother some tough love.
I am, yeah. Oh yeah, there was some tough love that whole night.
In the same way, Drew's father was like, "You guys have to leave."
Yeah, I'm sure he wanted to say more, but he was like, "You guys can't do this."
Yeah, he wouldn't let you guys leave, but anyway. Yeah. Anyway, cool. That's this day of music rap, yeah?
Yeah, that's this day. We're done.
All right, cool. Moving on.
Now we can start the podcast.
Rock and roll. So moving on to Spotify Wrapped, and as we say, year in review, music-wise, whenever, take it as you may. Go ahead and just give me your thoughts, whether it's new music, old music, reconnected, blah, blah, blah.
All right. Well, I got my Spotify Wrapped back, and I think that's kind of where this conversation will probably go. And, just reflecting. It was a good year in music, so a lot of good music. Some things that were really consistent that I didn't get back into, but I've been really heavy into Goose this year. That showed up on my Spotify as number 2 band listened to. My number 1 was Delicate Steve. I've talked about that many times here. We had a wonderful experience in the Joshua Tree. I think I made some new fans out of Chris and our friend Steve.
Definitely did.
Yeah, I think my top 5 was in fact Delicate Steve, Goose, Blink 182. What was 4? And then 5 was the Grateful Dead, Drew, which I know you're probably, you're not a big Dead. I'm a little surprised too. My Wrapped is no longer. Oh, there it is. So what did I say? The number 4 is what I need.
Yeah, it always takes a while for it to load up.
Porter Robinson. Drew, do you know Porter Robinson? I think I sent you his album. So I got into EDM a little bit in the beginning of last year. I was listening to some Deadmau5, or is it Deadmau5 or Mouse?
Deadmau5.
Yeah, Deadmau5.
Yeah.
Strobe. Let's listen to Strobe, and I got into some Porter Robinson, not Washington, and it was really good. And that was one of the albums that I downloaded and had when I was flying. And EDM is really good for in the air, like not like club EDM, but like more atmospheric EDM, like just electronic music. I mean, it's very atmospheric. So Delicate Steve and Goose have been like staples. Been listening to a ton. As far as like Spotify Wrapped goes, though, I saw a general sense of disappointment with this year's reflection on everybody's year. And I remember last year was way more in depth, and they had a little bit more detailed, like small, like stats, like they gave you like number of minutes and hours or plays for certain songs. But last year I think it had more data on more songs, and I don't know, people were a little bit just more disappointed overall with it. Did you guys notice that there was a ton of stuff on the internet about how they were pretty disappointed in it?
Yeah,
I'm not a Spotify customer, so I'm
so you didn't see any of those posts?
No. Mm-mm.
Yeah, I definitely saw my fair share. It seems like it was just kind of like a retread, both in terms of the information that they gave. Like I felt like there's always the stuff that you want to see, like the how many minutes, your top artists, your top songs, but like they would usually in the past always kind of have like a couple little gimmicky things of like what your taste says about you or different things like that, or like what city like your taste like most fits in, different things like that. And I feel like they didn't have any of those things this year, but the top artist thing really seemed to be a point of pain for a lot of people. And people were complaining about the fact that like it wasn't accurate, or it was just kind of like prior artists that came in number one, they just like throw them together in a list. So I kind of feel that way about mine. Like the last like few years, like I haven't listened to a bunch of Pearl Jam, but Pearl Jam's always in my top artists. And like they were number 4 again this year. But so I don't know. It just seems like I think the boys are mailing it in over at Spotify HQ.
Yeah. Well, I know last year they gave us a list of like, you would like these songs, and they actually took like all of your prep, which they probably, I guess they have that daily discovery, but like it gave you a list of songs that you had never listened to or something. And that wasn't there this year. Like I remember being more excited about that this year. And I don't know, it felt very like, I mean, and it could just be fatigue that it's like year 5 of when this stuff comes out, and it's like not as, they might have referred to the previous years in the last one, or as like a little bit more accessible. Like this year, I think you have to go and compare look it up or something. But, I will say though, as I was talking to a few people, and I think the minutes listened went down for a lot of people. Like, I mean, I've been over 90, and it was like 70,000. I thought a lot of people were kind of switching platforms. But in December 2023, Spotify announced layoffs affecting approximately 1,500 employees, which represents 17% of its workforce, as part of its efficiency drive to achieve profitability. So basically,
shareholder value, man.
The CEO wanted to make more money, and but that was, so this last year, that was right after Spotify Wrapped was delivered last year. So as I was talking to somebody, like I imagine that they laid off a lot of people that were in charge of doing that. And this year they were just like, oh shit, like AI, like pump out everybody's Spotify Wrapped. We need these templates. And so I think that there was a lot less hands involved. It was more generated. I mean, it's probably generated every year, but like there just was less things that less thought that went into it. It was a little bit later, as we talked about, and people just, they just put it out there for people to see. And it was just like, wow, this was pretty lackluster. And like I said, that could be also fatigue, but they did just fire a ton of people. So you're going to lose quality in things that, as a streaming company, there's not a lot of things like the interface that changes. And, if you take away, the creative side or the, people, you're going to lose the, what's the word I'm looking for? The personality.
Yeah, there's a human element to it.
Yeah, the human element to like last year. It just felt like it just felt a lot more like in a microscope. Yeah, this year was like a lot wider and just like, all right, those are the numbers. Like I could have deduced those of who it might. I mean, I don't know. It's just a little bit less impressive.
Yeah, man. Well, I mean, that's the trend. I mean, it's not even just with like music platforms. I think, companies are definitely leaning out the staffs that they have to do these things, and the big CEOs are making the calls and chopping some of the workforce, and I think these things happen, and I think it's kind of a detriment. I think technology can only do so much to replace these things, both the creativity of whatever teams are working on this, the rollout of it, the efficiency of it, the interpretation of it. It just kind of felt like a little watered down this year, even with like some of the stuff that they do for Spotify for podcasters, for example, because like there's a wrap that they give us. And I know in the past, like there's been a little bit more different, different types of figures or things that they glean based off of how people listen. And this year did not feel that in depth, but I don't know. At the end of the day, I mean, I think from Spotify's perspective, like, it's one of the most like I remember when they first started doing Spotify Wrapped. The first year that I got one was 2017, and it was just like, okay, cool. It wasn't the social media phenomenon that it is now, and I'm sure like the amount of buzz and the amount of press they get about it, it's become like a cultural zeitgeist almost, and it's it's almost as big as some of the biggest like musical performance acts that happen every year. It's so anticipated.
This is the only thing they do for us, right?
Yeah, man. They don't do anything for us.
This is the only thing that they do. Everything else is just there, and people upload their own. You know what I mean? Like they have the interface, but like they don't do much. So the fact that it was a little bit less kind of stinks.
Yeah.
Well, don't they curate like a lot of those playlists and stuff?
What's that?
Don't they curate like all the playlists and stuff like that? And
those are all just retreads too, I feel like, because they have a bunch of them.
The worst part is if you go to
they have like the day lists, they have the radios, they have the mixes. It's all just songs that you've hearted before. So it's just like, hey, here's your favorite songs list, just shuffled a little bit.
Yeah, as far as music discovery goes, I think it's not helpful at all, right? At least in the past few years. I think maybe in the beginning there was like no rhyme or reason, but then they're like, oh, people want to hear the stuff that they like, or they do not take any chances with it. And you have to get really creative to actually get some new stuff on those playlists or those radios. You have to go somewhere you've never been before, which, got to take, of course, that's how you discover things. You have to do it differently. So, it's just a exercise for yourself, I guess.
Yeah. I don't want to get too like down this one particular rabbit hole that I'm going to start getting down, but like I feel like people almost have gotten to the point where they expect too much from like their music streaming technology. I think particularly in the sense of trying to discover stuff. And I've done this too. Like I kind of like have grown to rely pretty heavily on like the Spotify app, like in the algorithm and whatever software they use, like showing me things that I've not listened before, as opposed to like looking out, going out and looking for it myself, or like, having, and I still have conversations with people and get suggestions and everything. But I think, those like organic instances of discovering things have kind of been, if not replaced, certainly diminished, because I know, at least me personally, like I kind of rely a little bit more than I probably should on like, what's in my mix today, or like what's in my, new music radar thing or whatever that they release. So I don't know, it's like, I think we might expect too much from them.
Yeah, I do think that the smaller artists, like whatever algorithm that Spotify operates on, like you got to be above a certain amount of streams, because there is a ton of artists that, you know, you find and you're just like, this stuff will never pop up on said radar or discovery playlist. So I don't know how the numbers work. If you have to be over a certain amount of monthly listens for them to actually to put you in, and that's getting in the weeds, obviously, if you're down there. But like, you know, I've had friends send like their personal albums, and you know, surprised that it's on there or something. But
yeah, dude,
I don't know. Overall, though, I went to a lot of concerts and got really into. I mean, I've always been into live music, but it was a big live music for me. And now on Spotify, I search out just like if I look up an album, like I just look up a live version, try to find a live version of it. And thankfully, a lot of artists have that on there, and I think it's getting easier to record and have live performances. But same thing with the vinyl, like the blemishes and the differences that you get from version to version, I find really fascinating right now. So I've been searching out that type of stuff, and not just jam bands, but other like Rush or like old Ozzy Osbourne Crazy Train performances, or random rock performances from Rio and Brazil. And, you know, everybody's got a live album out there, and like I listened to a Blink-182 album straight through, and I think that's, you know, recently, and I think that's why they're on my top list. I'm not sure how they made my top 5, but they've always been there because Spotify knows it's one of my favorite artists of all time, I think.
Do you guys have a favorite new artist or band that you've discovered this year?
I don't know. I wasn't really that, I suppose, adventurous maybe in like discovering new musicians this year relative to I think some years past. Like I think
last year was Petey.
Yeah, like so much
I mean,
so much of my listening. Yeah, man, so much of my listening this past year is just like sticking with what I know that I like. So like it was kind of just like more of the same, which was good. It was kind of nice, like not having to work so hard to find stuff that I like. And I was like, you know what, I'm good with this. Same way, like a lot of the shows that I went to, like you know, it was kind of stuff like I already knew that I liked, and you know, wanted to go see it because of it. So yeah, it was a good year though. I mean, I always listen to tons and tons of music. The amount of grunge that I listen to is certainly at an all-time low, which I'm totally cool with it. I'm good with it. I think I've at least for right now, I feel like I've gleaned all that I need from it.
Well, you've learned
it'll
everything.
Always be there.
Yeah, man, it's always there. What about you, Drew? What's your personal year in review for music? Ben, like I feel, yeah,
my year in review is twofold. You will both be surprised. I think I might have shared with Ethan. I was dragged to a show by my sister to see an Australian band called Pond. And I actually had a great time. Yeah.
Nice. What kind of vibe are they? Like what's
yeah, like jammy-ish, like Australian rock. They all kind of switch instruments. Like the lead guitar player was really good, played like drums for half the show. So it was sort of that sort of shtick thing.
Nice.
And the lead singer is like, I mean, very reminiscent of, you know, like a Wyland or Jagger sort of like kind of style.
Yeah.
So funnily enough, we're continuing that trend. But the context being like Ethan always busts my stones. Like I never really loved going to live shows, being in the audience.
Yeah.
You know, like growing up, just like I was like, I wanted to be on stage, or I wanted to save my money to buy things that I could use on stage. And that was sort of like where my head was, and you know, stuff
where the focus was. Like
yeah. But I haven't been to a live show in like a long time, and that was my first one. Shout out to my sister Grace for dragging me there. It sort of reinvigorated the allure, because even I've never heard a single song about it. I went in blind, and they
have a song "Paint Me Silver" that Drew, Chris, you'll definitely know Paint Me Silver. I mean, it's pretty popular. I didn't know they were Australian. And I know exactly what you're talking about, though, Drew, because there's stretches, not as long as you, that I don't go to shows, and then I go and I'm like, oh, yeah. I was like, I love this atmosphere. I love the performance of it and everything that comes
Looks
with a
cool.
live show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds
Everybody
cool.
gets everything matters. Like the shirts that they wear are planned out. You know what I mean? Like it's very cool.
It's very careful. Yeah.
I'm sure that show is sweet. It probably was really good.
Yeah.
It was good. It was very good. It was very well done. Very well orchestrated. And then second part to my year in review, dude, I discovered, I know that you guys probably know McGee.
Yeah.
Which I've never heard of this guy before, but
he's pretty new.
Okay. Yeah.
As far as I know, I just learned about him a couple months ago. Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say recent for me. He was on the SNL. And the guy's amazing guitar player, very unique style, plays a standard length guitar, like a Fender Jaguar, baritone. So he has the baritone strings tuned down to like a B standard almost. So it's like a very like lower sounding guitar.
Yeah.
And he plays a very blues. It's like an R&B blues 80s mesh. And
That's
it's
crazy.
Really, really, really cool. And he's got a great voice.
Yeah, I remember when I first heard him, and that's what kind of pushed me back into Bon Iver, because he has a ton of stuff that is similar to the experimental. He's like this.
Yeah,
generations
experimental,
like
for sure.
This generation's like experimental creative and like a sound that you've never heard before. And I mean it's pretty true. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, so that was definitely a highlight in my review of music this year. Absolutely.
Makes you believe in music again a little bit, huh?
That's what Eric Clapton said about him. He's because they were. I saw a little clip of him. Somebody was interviewing about guitar players. What's the future of guitar playing? And he's like, "We got McGee. It's okay."
Wow, high praise.
Yeah.
That's
Really
pretty cool.
With that being said, something you guys brought up, Ethan, you said you feel like it's getting easier for people to record music and stuff like that, and it's becoming more accessible, right? And I want to kind of circle back to the Jimi Hendrix conversation as well. Like he was so young. When did he pass away? 25, 26?
I think he was 27 club. I think. 27? Yeah, I think he died in 1970. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe he started 18, if that.
Probably,
right?
Yeah.
Something
probably
like that.
earlier.
So young. The quality back then, even though you listen to it, like it sounds like low quality now, but it's actually still very high quality. I mean, it's timeless music, right? Like we still listen to it, we still enjoy it.
Yeah.
Really, really well done. Do you think that quality with the youth, with becoming more accessible, with people becoming like more, not necessarily like, there's more confidence that is not earned in the world right now? Do you think that quality of music, quality of the actual sonics, or even the art has gone down in any way because of that? Because of accessibility, because of
yes.
Yeah. I think yes. I think we referenced it last week when we were talking to Noah and how he had listened to a lot of artists, and that not knowing something and not having it so accessible just drives your creative gene or sense and makes you become way more figure it out and do it. Scott Crane, we talked about Bainbridge Island, like they were learning stuff in the 80s, and you couldn't just look it up on YouTube, so you had to look and learn and follow along as someone played live. And that's how we learned. I mean, that's how I learned. I would just like listen to a track and try to figure out the best I could, and I'd miss things. So I think that when it's easier to get it done, you may be able to perform a song or perform certain things, but like, yeah, as far as the intricacies and like actually really having a connection or an understanding to what you're playing and the instrument involved, like guitar, like there's just, people literally traveled around the world and they just carried their guitar, or, when they travel, like all they had was their guitar and they would play to get through, and people probably still do it now, but it's just way less. I don't know. It's just not as much as it used to be. So I think that creatively, you're still getting really interesting things, but it's not coming from, it's coming from something else, and it could be auto-generated in different samples and whatnot. But before there was that, I think that there was a lot more mastery involved than there is now. So is the quality going down? Maybe yes, maybe no, but I think that how they get to whatever quality it is now is changing. And I think that before it was a little bit more, like I said, mastery kind of oriented, not just like final product oriented. And it sounds, clean, then it's good. Like,
Yeah, that's interesting. I think like accessibility in a vacuum, I think is such an asset, but I think it's so rare for accessibility to come without somebody or something trying to tell you what's good or what's the correct way or what's, the certain methodology into doing this. And I think there's just something about, going it your own way, or maybe, learning something specifically from one person who perhaps learned it their own way, that can kind of maybe not create a higher quality product, but I think definitely makes that journey more authentic, perhaps, because it's like I think of like accessibility almost in this case like as synonymous with like information, right? And how challenging it is for to find information without the presenter of that maybe necessarily having a bias or something, or trying to get their point across in one way or another. So I think it's definitely had an impact, and I think like people are more pushed into like what other people perceive as like, hey, this is the way that you should learn this, or this is the way you should think about that, or in this case, like this is the way that you should play this, or like this is the right way to learn guitar. But it just kind of takes like that individual aspect of it that makes a lot of so many artists so great. It kind of takes that out of it a little bit, and we definitely lose something. But then again, at the same sense, like I think accessibility is great in the sense that, you're providing opportunity and you're maybe providing a window in for more people than would have otherwise, because they didn't have like, the older kid down the street who you could hear playing guitar in the garage. All you need now is a computer, really. So I don't know. It's it's got its good and its bad, but it certainly had an impact.
Yeah, you didn't have Jeff Zimmerman down the road to teach you Purple Haze and shoot
exactly
shotguns afterwards.
It's a well-rounded day right there.
Oh yeah, good old Jeff.
Yeah, my brain goes to like obviously like more technical side, of course, when I'm thinking about this aspect. So for me, like I'll listen to podcasts that are, just way bigger than ours, and it will sound like absolute dog shit. Okay, like you have people who like they record like pretty high, high level people. They record things just into their cell phone.
Yeah.
A voice memo, and then put it into the song. Again, it's art, so there's no right or wrong, but there is a good day and there is a bad day. Like there is some sort of universal like thing that we like, thing that is better, thing that could be better versus something that just exists, right?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So what I was going to bring up is not necessarily writing lyrics, but say like sports columnists and just writers in general. And you think about 20 years ago, people that beat writers, like, I mean, they would write pieces that were, you know, just full of like really good descriptions, words, because that was like the only way to really understand what was going on, because you couldn't watch every game all the time. Now things come out and they just have more time to get it out. Now things need to come out quicker, faster, and you just get them out. And not that they're not well thought out or well developed, but like, you know, I think about like their, you know, classical books or writers from back, and like, not saying that the writers now and the people that write lyrics now don't have that in them, but like back then it just seemed like it was better quality because of writing and like more complete and getting it kind of flushed out flushing out ideas in a better way. And there was just more pride in the work. And like I said, there's still a lot of pride in some places here, but I think as the mass, there's more media and there's less good media. You know what I mean? The pyramid is wider versus taller.
Exactly. Right.
I think there's a big paradigm shift with a lot of things. For a long time, I think it was more important to be better, and now I think it's maybe more important to be first with a lot of things. You know, it's just all or just quantity versus quality almost.
Yeah, as well, right?
Totally.
Like the TikTok, the Instagram thing. It's just you have to constantly be posting, constantly be active. It doesn't really matter if the quality is lesser. It's like people don't really like, because if there's more of that, to your point, Ethan, like if there's more dog shit, people will hear less of, you know, this the creme brulee. So then dog shit becomes normal, right? And then you don't even really like, you hear the creme brulee and you're like, sounds not like what I'm used to. What's going on? You know,
yeah.
It's almost like the unfamiliarity is like unattractive at that point, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think a great example of that now is just how like people choose to consume video, right? Where now, I mean, with like a TikTok or something, and like I'm guilty of this too. Like my attention span has been negatively impacted by like short form videos and TikToks and reels and shorts and everything. It's like, you know, if something's not doing it for somebody within the first like 4 seconds of watching it, all you got to do, you just scroll, you know, and like I can only imagine like a 13-year-old kid or somebody who like grew up with that being the norm. Cause I think like we're lucky in the sense that, you know, that technology wasn't as pervasive when we were kids and we were so impressionable and our frontal lobes hadn't developed. But like, you know, even for me, like sometimes like it's definitely gotten more difficult now than it was before all of this to like sit down and like watch a movie and like not look at my phone. And it's got an impact, and it's just like, you know, are those like short reels that capture your attention in 2 or 3 seconds that are over in 30 seconds, you know, is that higher quality than something you have to sit down and take like a half hour or an hour to watch? Like, probably not. And there's so many of them, you know, you're just churning those things out, you know, to kind of keep everybody on the hamster wheel a little bit. And I think, you know, I think everybody's been so concerned with making sure that everybody stays on the wheel, that they really haven't taken time to honestly assess whether or not it's even a good thing to keep people on the wheel. And I think that's going to have consequences. Like, not to like get too far out there, but like, I mean, I talked to, you know, peers of mine that are teachers, you know, and the things that they have to deal with their classes and their students now, and their attention spans or their work ethics or their lack of desire to do things without just, you know, looking it up on their phone or on their computer. Like, teaching's a hard job because it's, you know, I think these kids are growing up in a hard world where all of these things are constantly there to put their impression on them. It's got to be hard. It's got to be hard, man.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast talking about, said sports writers, and back in the day, if you wanted to get on radio, you'd have to pay your dues, go through the line and actually be there for 10 years before someone's be like, all right, we're going to put your voice on radio. Where now it's like, if you want your voice on radio, you just record yourself and put it out there, and you do it enough, and then it gets picked up. And a lot of times there's, resentment because all they didn't put in the time necessarily. They just put it out there. Which is, could be good or bad, but, yeah, I do think that it's almost hard to space out nowadays. Like I was listening, or I was thinking, I don't know if I'm talking or listening or thinking about it, but like the idea that
me, I know I wasn't thinking
something, I can't remember, but the idea is like, how much time through the day do you go where like, you don't listen to music in the car, you don't listen to music, you don't listen to podcasts, and you actually let your brain think of its own thoughts and actually generate like its own shit,
intelligence,
versus having like always being in a dialogue or always being, just entertained by something. And you hear a lot of say writers or people they do a lot of stuff where they get away, or they have a lot of an hour a day where they don't like consume anything, and they make themselves, they practice this, and they make themselves think and be alone and be introspective. And it definitely becoming harder and harder to do that, and to not actually touch your phone or not actually have music playing, because I love music, but sometimes you just like, I just need to focus on like what I'm doing and not worry about having something behind me.
Yeah, and what I think is kind of interesting to think about is like the double-edged sword, or the sort of caveat for all of this, like the short attention span that's been growing in society. It sort of clashes with the popularity of long-form conversation that is podcasting.
Yeah, sure. That's true. I didn't think about that.
So, like,
that's exactly
this one form of expression so popular, but then this other form of expression so popular, and it's become even more influential, this year with our presidential election, it seemed. So, what do you guys make of that?
I wonder if a part of that too is just like, maybe not necessarily like the length of it, but just the fact that like consuming it now, and most things, your consumption is entirely on your terms. It's not like, hey, the show is on at 8:00. If you're not sitting down at 8:00, you're going to miss it. I can start it when I want. I can pause it as many times as I want. I can listen to it at double speed. I can go back if I was zoning out. I think the control that you have over it to really personalize the listening or the consumption experience, I think that definitely plays a large part in not only people's consumption of podcasting, but I think everything. In the same sense, so many people watch stuff on YouTube now as opposed to watching linear television, or even just like, watching shows on like a streaming service as opposed to, catching the new episode of whatever it may be when it airs at like 10:00.
Yeah, I do think that talking about podcasts and traditional news outlets, it's just a cycle, right? So before, when it was just the news, like, you got to see the 6:00 news, and that informs your takes, and usually you kind of go with it. Now it's like the podcasters are out there, and I think it's a great thing. I mean, that's where people are getting their knowledge, and there's these long forms where people get to listen, and then they get to decide what side they're on, or they get to take the information, and it's not so like regimented or biased, or it's a little bit more just laid out. But the problem is now is you're always listening to other people talk about it, and you're not actually engaging in those conversations yourself. So it's like the same thing's going to happen. You're going to get callous to the podcast and the way that we're consuming media now. And, you're supposed to be, it's always supposed to be like, take it and make decisions or make understandings. But like, if all you do is consume and not actually like take it to the next level and like, turn it off and like think about it or something, then it's not going to internalize the same way. So I think it's really good, but I think it's also going to be like a cycle of like, all right, it's going to turn into the same thing where all of a sudden people are going to be against long form. People are all of a sudden going to be against podcasts or something because it just it speaks for us or something.
That's interesting. I think one more thing that I thought of about the podcasts is like, I mean, it's such a vast industry and there's, so many podcasts. Like, I think people love them because it's really, really easy to find a voice out there that directly mirrors your values or what you perceive yourself to be. And I think, because there's so many that, you can find, a spokesperson for what you perceive yourself to be a hell of a lot easier than you can, on cable, on a certain, network TV show or even the news or anything. So it's just like, I think there's so many more things out there that people can identify with I think that identification keeps them coming back too.
Yeah, and the old way is just, it's not how real life is. It's not a conversation. This is literal conversation, and
right.
Most humans like progress. Like we all like to progress, right? And there's only two ways that humans progress. It's through conversation or violence, right? So this is like the obviously only way that we should progress moving forward as a society, as a civilization. And I think that's why it's inherently so attractive, and it's inherently such a good, I think it is a net positive, if used smartly, if used correctly, and it's going to be wild to think, just as a really quick side note, dude, I just read this article today. There's these two Chinese companies that are, they set this super ambitious goal. They want to have collectively between the two of them, if my memory serves me correct, they want to have like 100,000 flying cars in low aerial flight in China by 2030.
That's not far away.
And they think that they can achieve this wildly ambitious goal. Okay.
That's crazy.
So the only reason I'm bringing that up, even though it's because it's fun and it's fun to think about and it's badass, think about how quickly things change, how quickly things evolve nowadays. How ultra influential do you guys think podcasts are going to be in the near future, say 2030, 2035? What do you foresee, good, bad, ugly, in terms of how it could be a net positive or net negative for society?
I would say that, like I said, I think it's a cycle, and podcasts are definitely in its heyday right now, but I'm sure something else is going to come up and take the reins in 5 years, because right now podcasts, I feel like maybe 2009, something like that, like when it started, people have been doing it for like 10, 15 years, and it got really hot like in say last 5 years. And I mean, like 20-year lifespan is a long time for any certain media. You think about like CD players, TV. Yeah, there's like a lifespan of like 15, 20 years before it moves, and technology is definitely advancing at a faster rate. And if there's flying cars, if there's 100,000 flying cars in 2030, then I'm sure something different than podcasts are gonna be relevant. But if there is something different, that I think it'll also allow. I mean, basically like live streams are kind of, they've gotten really big in the last 2 years, but I'm sure live streams is like even the next thing. It's like, oh, this is live, not just recorded and edited. This is completely raw and not edited, and the quality sucks, as we talked about earlier, but it doesn't matter because it's live. And so there's probably something else out there, right, that's going to be like really influential. So I mean, I think the podcast it'll probably lose its value, just same way like the news cycle, or same way like TV. Like TV was so big, and then it's being passed up, so it's losing its value. Like late night shows are just Like, I mean, they should just all move to podcasts and have their video on podcasts. Like, it doesn't need to be on late night. It should just be, like you said, Chris, whenever you want to watch Late Night with Seth Meyers, you can go on Spotify, watch it. There's a video feed, and that's what they're doing. You know, PTI, like if I don't watch, I love PTI. I love watching it every day, but I just listen to the podcast every day. I can do it whenever I want.
Yeah.
And I'm one day behind, or you catch it up, but like, you know, those shows that you love watching now you can do whenever you want because they're moving to these other platforms.
Yeah, I feel like I don't think we're at the peak. I don't know how even that we're that close to like the peak of the influence of podcasts and you know, that type of media commanding the day. Like I still think they're going to become more and more influential. Certainly I think they'll still be top dog in 2030, but I think the question is just like, how quickly can somebody create something with AI that personalizes even more, which I don't understand. And like AI really freaks me out. And I don't like it. And I feel like so many people's applications of it so far have been buggy and weird. And it really freaks me out. But I feel like that's probably the next frontier with a lot of this stuff is just like continuing to personalize things and continue to give people the feeling of control over, I think, how they listen and what they listen to. And I think what they're listening to is trying to tell them.
I think the main thing with, like say mainstream media right now is somebody owns it, right? Somebody always owns it. There's a lot of money involved. And that ultimately is it's like politics. You know, money is just so enveloped in the big companies and all that. And the podcast world right now, people are going all on their own. And it's not so money forced. Like, obviously, we're doing this podcast and we're sharing our opinions for, you know, pennies. Like, I mean, we're just, you know, we're not making any money doing it. And there's a ton of people like that. So I think at some point, you know, money is going to control podcasts the same way it controls the other media. So then people are going to lose faith in it. But right now it seems like it's very user driven and not necessarily money driven, but I'm sure that'll change in some capacity.
Yeah. And it just like, it's how long can people continue to put up the illusion that, you know, there's not money behind it. I mean, the same thing. I mean, anytime you have a politician come around and be like, oh, like I'm for the people, or like it's time to get big business, you know, out of government. And then you go and look and they're being supported by all of these super PACs, which, you know, or, you know, you get people that are trying to get, you know, the elites out of government, and then they're bankrolled by the richest people. You know, and I think a lot of that happens with podcasting too. And certainly some of the bigger ones, it's like, oh yeah, like we're an independent agency, like we don't answer to anybody. But then if you look at the, you know, the ad partnerships that they have and the money that they're bringing in, you know, I think, you know, so as long as you know, civilization exists, people are going to be doing stuff for money, and there's going to be money involved in it. But there's definitely, I think, more of an opportunity for autonomy, and certainly maybe, you know, people that wouldn't, like, you know, if podcasts didn't exist or like social media, like nobody would be listening to what us three schmucks have to say about anything, you know. But
hey, who you calling a schmuck?
And it gives us the opportunity, which is, you know, speaking to that accessibility question earlier, that's like the one positive is like so many people have opportunities to communicate and to be heard and to listen through so many other avenues that haven't previously existed, you know. And how many people have parlayed like a podcast, you know, as like the main driver on a non-traditional route to success, or non-traditional route to, you know, having such a big base. I mean, it happens all the time.
Yeah.
Sounds like we need to get something.
And we're next. We need.
I'm ready.
I'm ready to be bankrolled by like the podcast equivalent of like a super PAC. Like I'm ready. Like I will sell out, and like I'll lie and do that whole thing where like, yeah, we're for the people, but like, you know, behind the scenes we're getting like envelopes full of money. I'm totally good with that.
Do you guys think that money is playing a role in more things now than ever. So like, you know,
I don't
now
think so.
people get paid for convenience, like dropping stuff off. I mean, people, I guess they've always getting paid to move, but like simple things. Is there like more hesitancy to like help someone because you're not getting paid, and you know there's somebody out there is doing something like simple tasks like walking somebody's? People get paid to walk other people's dogs. You know, and then, so if I were to text you like, hey, can you walk my dog? I'm not around, or like, and people are like, yeah, like I want to be compensated for my time. Do you think that people are more almost like thinking about that a little bit more than say like 20 years ago when stuff, you know, the helper community side is less and less, you know, and now that we get older, we like kind of live in, we're understanding like, I mean, you live in a community, and I don't know my neighbors as well as I should, but like, it seemed like back in the day, you know, you knew your neighbors, you helped each other out, and there was way more like, you know, living cooperative going on. And now it just seems like everything is, or, you know, music, people are writing music. I mean, you know, people write music not for money, but like, you know, at the same time, people are writing music just to make a living, not just because it's so important to them. I don't know. Do you guys understand what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying. I think what you're, just take the dog walking thing. I think WAG is a symptom of the detriment of communal building relationships that we have in, you know, in this day and age, where, like you said, you don't know your neighbors as well as you should. I don't know my neighbors as well as I should. Chris, maybe you do, maybe you don't, but
not as well as I should, I don't think.
Yeah, so it's like if you don't have somebody nearby that you can just be like, hey, can you dog sit? Can you walk the dog? Whatever. And, you know, when I was young, you know, my neighbors, I would watch, you know, walk the dogs, feed the dogs, you know, if they went on vacation or whatever. Not get, you know, wouldn't ask for money. Don't, you know, I was young enough. My parents would never suggest that I ask for money. You know, they wouldn't ask them for money. You know, it's just your neighbor. So it's just what you do.
Right. People do it out of kindness of their heart. But like, if somebody asked me to watch the dog, I would be like, you know, you don't have to pay me. No. But then a lot of people would be like, if I'm going to watch your dog, like, you should pay me. You know, I think it's a little bit, people are saying that more now than they would have.
Really? Yeah. I haven't come across it, but it makes sense. But yeah, I just think like a WAG, or like, you know, when we go away, you know, have to hire somebody to do it, you know, sort of thing. Yeah. And I think it just has to do with like, just like a lack of community. Maybe
trust.
Nowadays, you know,
it's like a trust thing.
Yeah, or like a safety, a trust thing. There's like, I don't know. Do you think it's more dangerous? Like, or do you think maybe we're just more exposed to the danger, so we think it's more dangerous because of social media, where maybe it always has been as dangerous, but you just...
What's dangerous?
Outside.
Outside. Well, it's funny you brought up safety. I mean, I would feel more safe having, you know, Chris watch my dogs than a random person. But at the same time, you know, if you're paying somebody and it's legally, you know, I don't know if it's, you know, legally binding or not, but if you use an app, like, then you can file a complaint and blah 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 and get retribution.
I'm saying for like the lack of community that it seems has disintegrated. You know, the community building has disintegrated over since we were growing up. Do you think that's because there's a lack of a sense of safety, of trust, like you said? Or do you think, is that true? Has safety gone down? Has it disintegrated? Or is it just that we're exposed to more crazy shit on, you know, when we see on Twitter or X, that we think it's crazier out there than it was before, but maybe it just always was that much?
I've got
maybe
some thoughts on that.
Yeah. Maybe you're just seeing, obviously, the small minority of crazy shit. And
yeah,
blah, blah, blah.
I think, and I think this has gone on forever. I think the negative stuff, or like the dangerous things, or like the acts of brutality or what have you, like they always get, you know, the lion's share of the attention, and I
amplified for sure.
Yeah, and like people are so quick to like extrapolate one bad thing that happened as a sign of the times or a sign of how things are going, and they don't often do that with the good things that happen, because, you know, the good things that happen are just kind of expected. And So I think that's become more pervasive just because we're all plugged into what's happening more. We're not just waiting for the 5 o'clock news or waiting for the morning paper anymore. It's like anytime anything happens anywhere, we know about it. And then, as soon as we know about it, and often simultaneously, like we're being told by somebody what that means for our community, what that means for our town, or like this should make us more afraid. And I think, people definitely want, there's a faction of person out there that wants other people to be afraid of their neighbor or their community. I also think going back to like the sense of community and whatnot, and like, I think it's decreased, but I don't think it's decreased as much as maybe others would think, because I think it's just evolved a little bit. And like, there's more ability to be a part of communities that are non-traditional in the sense of where they're located. And I just think of like some of my best friends in the world who I would consider to be a part of my community are not a part of my geographical community. Like, I mean,
right here.
Yeah. Like, look at us right now. Like, I'm in Rhode Island, you're in Alabama, and you're in California.
It's like hopping on the game.
Yeah. Like I'd say like y'all are part of my community, but it's like, I can't ask you to like, swing by my house and pick up my mail if I go away for the weekend. And people, you won't
pay my bills.
Exactly.
I left my checkbook on the counter table.
Yeah.
Real quick.
Like one thing before I forget, like the one commonality over the years, like I think the amount of time that we've had to invest in our communities has never changed, because there's only so much time in a day. And if I'm choosing to invest time in communities, that exist outside of where I specifically live, like the street that I'm on, then so be it, but it's not that there's no community. It's just maybe not as centralized as it has been.
Let me ask you this, and I'm going to ask you if you're willing to change your mind or not.
Yeah.
Would you consider changing your definition of community, as you just stated it, to pack? And
to pack?
Yeah, like a wolf pack, like your pack. Sure. And using community as like actually immediate, maybe not necessarily as close.
Yeah, like my surrounding, sort of like the people in my surroundings, kind of.
Yeah.
I could see that like there as like two separate things, and I think people have become less engaged with like their, as you say, like surrounding community or like immediate area. But I don't think it's because people are like want to be involved less. It's just, I think there's so many more things competing for people's attentions, both like their different packs, but also the different things that can distract you,
think about when you were kids, and I think you guys probably do the same thing. You played with the kids down the street, or you'd go on, you'd get together after school and walk to the local, Free Fry Friday at the Pine Tree Deli. You do these things together now. Like if kids go home and they get distracted, or they have other things that they can do, like, you don't have, who knows, I don't know how they are grouped in high school, because I should talk to my brother, but like, and they have friends when they're there, but like, I think like in high school, my dad would always say like after school, we'd all meet up over here and we'd play football, or we'd all meet up over here and play basketball. And like, you have like because there was less things pulling your attention away. And I think that definitely goes in my day to day. There's so many things that are pulling my attention where, life was when life was simpler, it made it easier to interact. Just like when I go somewhere else and I'm, when you go somewhere else for like a longer time and you're not as connected in that area, I find myself wanting to talk to more people than when I'm out in my hometown type of thing, because I don't have so many things that I can easily access and easily, feel like I need to figure out. Like when I'm out there and it's just like, okay, what's going on? You're like, I'm fully in the moment. I'm just living, you're so much more open to that.
Yeah. An analogy I've heard that I like and utilize as well is like putting your day into like a 10-minute attention span. So if I only have 10 minutes of attention, if I give 1 minute here, I've only got 9 minutes left. It's not a lot, like, so you have to like be real smart, be real conscious of where you allow your attention to grant itself, you know. Crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
That's
Guys.
good.
Well, I'd like to move on to some sort of current events, if that's okay with you.
It's the Drew McFadyen show.
It's
Yeah,
the Drew
thank you
McFadyen
everybody
Show.
for listening. This is episode 3. We decided it was 3 of the Drew McFadyen Show.
Yes,
A little
it is.
different, but not different at all from the Grunge Bible podcast. So we're happy you guys are still with us.
Oh, we are so happy. So first,
Give
thing
us
I
a
wanna,
fastball. Give us something good, Drew.
Well, these are going to be. We don't have to ruminate too much on them. But I do want to bring up something apt to our industry. There was some hot news, unfortunately for Mr. Jay-Z. You guys hear about this? Any thoughts on this?
I briefly heard about it. I know he's
You broke the news to me, Drew, actually right before we got on here. So I am actually don't know much about this.
he's been denying the claim, right? Like he
deny,
came
deny,
out,
deny.
deny, defend,
Well-
depose.
Okay. Well, yeah. So he was
Lay it out.
He was accused of misconduct, sexual misconduct. With at the time, this was back in 2000. So this was almost 25 years ago. This is now just newly brought up, newly filed. The person at the time would have been 13. And this was like part of the whole sort of P. Diddy sort of whole,
Sean Diddy Combs.
scandal. Yeah. And they're accusing of, pretty egregious things, to which like some of the details like are like rather like, if you like listen to like the story, the claim, it does just sound like, not saying it's true, not saying it's false, anything like that. It is like a wild story. And like, if like you should go listen to like their account of that night. It's wild. Like, and again, it was like 2000. So like, I was 5 or 6 or something. So
Just
like,
a lad.
I don't know like what the time was, but the person's claimed that they were 13. Wild story, wild night. If it was true, like absolutely wild. But Jay-Z then very, very quickly issued what was a statement on X, right, on Twitter.
Yeah, I think through his like Rock Nation thing or whatever.
Okay. Yeah.
I didn't read it. I just saw that came out like pretty shortly after.
Yeah. It was pretty lengthy, and it was pretty like understandably, but like it was like pretty like obviously like you could tell he was like upset.
Yeah.
Like by the allegations, and like very much like I think this was this filed in civil, but he was like don't file this in civil court, file this in criminal court, because
I'm sure it must have been
if this is
civil.
true, because he's like, if this is true, whoever did this should be put away forever.
Yeah.
Was sort of like his spin, like his argument.
Yeah.
He
That was a power play on his part, because number one,
he never said like I wasn't there, I never did it, which I thought was interesting. But like again, I've never never been in a situation.
Right.
Wait, so who brought this up? Did somebody, a victim, came out and said this, or was this like
her attorneys?
P. Diddy was like, I'm gonna throw him under the bus, or who?
No, this person's attorney served Jay-Z.
Because it was a part of like ongoing litigation between this person and P. Diddy, and I think like throughout that process, like names had to be named, because it's civil. Because I think I don't know.
Yeah, it's not criminal. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and even at this point, like whether it happened or not, like power move on Jay-Z for like calling it out that like, all right, then like try me criminally, because the burden of proof for criminal cases is much higher than it is for civil cases, so it'd be even harder to prove. I don't know anything about any of the specifics, even
and
with
it's more punishable. I mean, you're going to jail,
right? Yeah, exactly. As opposed to spend, you gotta fork over some money. I think the one thing, and I feel like just like every couple of weeks we hear about some sort of like really, really, really perverse, messed up things that celebrities have gotten themselves into. Like this point, man, like nothing is a surprise to me anymore. And I think there's just something about like, when you have that much power, both financially and, with your status, I think it leads people to give into some dark things that they want to do. I mean, a lot of the Diddy stuff's really, really messed up. The whole R. Kelly stuff that happened like last couple of years that came out, like, I mean, there's so much weird stuff that goes on with some people who are in positions of power like this, and it's really, really, really scary.
Yeah, people think they're invincible.
They can just get away with everything because they're rich or they're wealthy.
Exactly.
And the crappy thing too is like a lot of times they can, because like they can get away with these things because they're rich and powerful.
Time.
Yeah.
Usually they get away with it for a long time, and then Bill Crosby.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, he
basically was like as he was dying. Yeah. I mean.
Yeah.
Harvey.
Yeah. I don't know.
Harvey,
I don't know. Yeah. Harvey. Exactly.
Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah. Harvey Weinstein for sure.
I'm interested to go and look it up, and it is like this stuff, and this is not saying it right, wrong, or this case specifically, but like having to hash out, like if you ask me, like, to recount a night that happened in college, which is now like 10 years ago or 15 years ago, and like the farther the time goes away, like it's and you're getting accounts from like multiple people, and like it is so hard to like call back on stuff that is so long ago. Like, dealing with this type of these cases that come up is just a nightmare. Like having to like hear people's stories and like kind of corroborate and trying to figure out like exactly like the truth of each details, and like how everything matters. The details matter, right? And like it's so hard to like, I don't know, there's probably records and stuff that assist this type of these operations, but like, yeah, that is just like, I mean, if something came up that, like, I mean, yeah, it's just really hard to kind of like recount and like, yeah. I mean, I think, Jay-Z knows obviously, but at the same time, like he knows the truth more than anybody.
Yeah.
But like, it is just like such a weary thing to like, there's just so many, like me and my brother talk about all the time, where I'm like, Queen, I was like, yeah, you never visited Kentucky. He's like, yes, I did. We have a picture. And then he shows me a picture, and I was like, oh shit. I was like, you did visit Kentucky. So it's like a weird thing. Like I said,
that makes me think too, like I always like think about like how hard it must be for like victims of traumatic things to come forward and to testify like in a criminal trial, like they literally have to relive and like face blistering cross-examination about literally the most traumatic thing that has ever happened to them without wavering, without without deviating from the truth for a second. Yeah. Exactly. Because I mean, like some of these attorneys, they'll burn you for that. And that, like, I think like when you're trying to recount something that either happened a while ago or something that's incredibly traumatic, like, I mean, think of all of the things that like, that aren't traumatic for us that we misremember. Like, oh, like I think that happened on like, such and such a day or such and such a year even. And you can't even properly remember it. It's just like, it's really crazy, like the things that people have to go through. Especially
when people go through trauma. I mean, they like black out. I mean,
I
mean, it's hard to remember those people all the time. And honestly, in success and failure, like if you're talking sports, like what happened on that last pitch? Like I blacked out. I don't remember. And especially traumatic events. It's like, honestly, like I got hit and I don't remember anything after that. Or it is really, really difficult.
It's like one of the biggest falsehoods that we learn and that we all just kind of believe is that like the human memory is just like a tape recorder, where it's just like, all right, well, however I remember it is exactly how it happened. But like that's it's not how memory works at all. And I mean, it's fascinating, but also at the same time, it has like really, really
Scary.
terrible consequences. Yeah, like that's
very
the thing. Like,
scary.
I don't know if I would want to count on my memory with a lot of things. Like if the stakes were high. Yeah, man. Yeah, I don't want any part of that.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess if it's a best case scenario, hope that nothing happened whatsoever. But worst case scenario, still sucks. But yeah, I really hope this didn't happen for both their sake.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, moving on. Next piece of current events. Which one of you hired Luigi Mangione? Oh my God. Whoa.
Ethan, guys, I think
What's up with this guy?
I think Luigi Mangione came out to the Myron porch one night. We were sitting out there.
I thought I saw him in Joshua Tree under a cave.
I think you hired him in Joshua Tree.
Yeah. That's
any thoughts on this guy? I mean, this guy was obviously really, really worked up. We saw him. Did you guys see that video of him getting when he was getting extradited?
Oh yes, when they were bringing him into the courthouse. Yeah. This one is I've been like following this like pretty, because it's interesting. Like when like the act happened in the city like last week. Like they didn't have any information on like who the perpetrator was, and they're like, all right, well, like he's gotten away, like we're never gonna find him. And then come to find out, he's like they found Luigi at a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania.
Yeah,
I've been to Altoona before, and I've probably driven by this McDonald's. This thing's kind of crazy, man. Because people are trying to like figure out like what his politics were, but like he was kind of like really all over the place because like he was like fairly like progressive about a lot of things. Certainly his view of the healthcare industry, but then in some of his influences, like he's been like he was interacting with like Tucker Carlson stuff on Twitter, and like he's big into some other things. So it's just kind of like a big enigma right now. But like I'll tell you, like the extent to which like this like fandom of this individual and like the memes too have been off the charts. Weird day for weird week for like the world, but like
healthcare.
a good day for the internet. Yeah, I mean, but this just goes to show like I guess there's a reason why so many people are like so supportive of this with how like predatory the healthcare system is.
I someone died like. It's such a weird, perverted
murdered,
way to murdered in daylight, and it's like it is weird how everybody is responding because people uproar all the time, and I don't know. I haven't done too much digging into it, but it is such a weird thing. Like I saw somebody was like, it's pretty weird that this guy was able to do this in broad daylight with a plan, get away, and then somehow get caught in a random Altoona McDonald's.
Yeah, like a week later.
With all of his stuff that would tie him.
That's
like,
the thing.
You don't think he had a better getaway plan than that?
That's what I don't understand. Like if he was so meticulous apparently to pull off this crime and like get out of the city, like why was he still carrying around like
everything
literally
like everything
unless he wanted to get caught. I don't know.
Weapon is like the most important thing to
yeah, man, exactly.
not have on you.
So like I don't know if that's
like,
just
what do I need to get rid of right now other than the body because I left it.
So like I don't know if that just means that like the crime itself was not challenging at all to commit, or if like I don't know. I mean,
it was too easy, so
crank up the difficulty a little bit. Let's hang around Altoona for a while and see what happens.
Wow.
But this one's crazy. Like I mean, at the very the consequence of this, I think a lot of people are kind of starting a conversation about like the healthcare system in the U.S. that they weren't having that conversation previously. But honestly, man, like if this is like this is like exactly what you would expect out of like a news story from 2024 with like how strange the modern world has become.
Well, to what you just said, there is a conversation about healthcare that wasn't happening before this. To circle back, what are the two ways that human society progresses, violence and conversation, right?
Yeah.
So here's an act of violence that initiates a conversation that progresses society forward. Should you initiate it with violence and, having a 3D silencer printed for your pistol?
Right.
No.
Right.
No, you shouldn't.
It's interesting. Like, they were, because I mean, this is like the first like instantly internationally famous like alleged murderer like from our generation. So like he has like such a big digital footprint, and like people were going on to his like his Goodreads account, I think that's what it's called, where like you review all the books you've read, and like he read the Unabomber's manifesto, and like he said that exact same thing. He's like, everybody was looking at the Unabomber as like a lunatic, and rightfully so. He was locked up for his violent crimes that he was targeting innocent people, and he paid for them. But he's like, it's like you have to like pay attention to his points in the sense that like he made the decision that like conversation or like non-violence was no longer a viable method to, get people to pay attention to certain things or to move these issues forward. And the only way that the powers that be would listen was through violence. And like, it's just like it's like a one-to-one reflection of like, certainly like how he felt about the healthcare industry to carry this thing out, allegedly carry this thing out. But it's interesting, people's points of views about things, and also just like how easily I think now people can be radicalized to do certain things, things like this
heinous murder.
Yeah.
Which moves us into electronic IDs. Ethan, I think, wants to spearhead this one.
Before we move on, though, I did see there was a picture of Luigi like shirtless or whatever, and there's some other jacked Instagram profile was like, why are people obsessed with these mild builds? And he was like, and the dude is like, he's very in shape for more than 90% of the population.
But let's put it this way: he's the best looking alleged killer we've gotten in a really long time.
Right. Well, I was gonna bring up Jeffrey Dahmer, how people like talk, or no, what was the
Richard
guy
Ramirez? He was I forget. They used to call him the Night Stalker, I think, out of LA. Like he had people when he got convicted and when he was in prison, like girls were like writing to him, like asking to marry him and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Super, very, very weird stuff. And, but yeah, this guy posted and said something about mild builds, and everybody was getting on him, but he was just a big, and I hopped on
that is A1 rage bait. That's hilarious.
Yes. I went onto his profile. I checked it out. He was talking about hypertrophy and how supersets are weak and all this stuff. Yeah. It was pretty fun. All right. Electronic IDs. Moving on to something a little less severe. So we're getting out of the Mangione zone. I think we're going to get out of the politics and all that. So for Drew's birthday, and for most Drew episodes, we always have a bottle of wine. Tonight I'm drinking Jack's Peak Pinot Noir, 2022 California. And
beautiful.
It was like $10 at Publix. It was originally 20, but it was on sale.
Excellent. We love a good sale.
So I went to Publix after I was working out, and I was getting some stuff. I was like, I got to get some wine. And I leave my wallet in my car pretty much all the time, because I pay with my Apple Card, pay with my phone.
Oh, yeah, just like the tap thing, right?
All the time, yeah. And so people don't carry their wallet as much. I mean, people carry their cards with their phone, I guess, but I haven't made the switch to something. I have a naked phone, no case. Drew does the same, I know, right? Yeah.
Nude,
wow. Naked. Dead and naked. That sounds bad.
break it round. Try me.
So I'm going through, and I know I've done this before, and I was like, all right, we'll see how the attendant is feeling. I do the same thing when I buy Zins. Like sometimes, like when I'm back home, the Wawas, they always are like, you need your ID. And so I get up there, and this lady's helping me, and I put the wine first because I know something's going to happen. She's like, can I see your ID? And I was like, I don't have it on me. It's in my car. I was like, can I show you a picture? And she's like, no, I really need to see it. And I was like, all right, are you sure? I was like, I can show you. I was like, I tell you my birthday, because sometimes they just type it in. She's like, no, I need to see it. And I was like, okay. So I was walking in my car, and I was just like, I want to ask her to scan it. Like she better scan this if she's making me get the ID.
Because that's what I get every time when they're like I'll go and buy Zyn or something. They're like, can I see your ID? And like to preempt me being upset, they're like, I just have to scan this in like anytime that I ring in like a purchase that's age restricted.
And that makes sense.
Right.
Like, okay, I can't sell this. Like I can't
there's a reason there.
I can't unlock this purchase unless it's scanned. So I get back and I give her my ID and I was like, just scan it. And she's like, oh no, I can't scan it. I was like, why'd you make me get it then? I was like, I'd walked out that I was thinking, I was just like, I'm going to make her scan it because like, otherwise she's just going to look at my birthday and type it in. And, I'm not saying you don't believe me, but like, and I'm not saying so I'm like, just scan it. She's like, I can't. And I was like, then what's the difference? And she's like, oh, I have to, like, we don't have the technology to scan it. And, like I have to type it in manually. And I was like, so a picture would have done the same exact thing. Just no, I need to see the original thing. And I was just like, but that doesn't make sense, right? I was like, you're not even like, all you're doing is typing it in. And, I understand why she had to do it. She's like, the
protocol, man.
The protocol, this and that. And, she rung me out, I paid, and I was standing there and I was like thinking of something, cause she's like, thank you for your patience, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, whatever. And I was like, when I was in Europe, like 3 years ago when COVID was going on, remember when we had those COVID vaccine cards that you had to show?
Oh yeah.
And it was a piece of paper and obviously people fake them and it was just a piece of paper. Well, in Europe, like you had a electronic ID, an electronic COVID card that like proved like if you wanted to get through borders, like you needed to upload it. So it was all electronic. And I was like, why can't we just show, I was like, electronic IDs? Like all you did was look at my card. I don't know. I don't know if you have the clearance to be able to tell me if this is a real or fake ID. All you did was read it. I didn't say that, but I was just like, back then all I did was I showed them my electronic ID. It's way more safer. I pay this way. I was like, we should have electronic IDs. And she was like, yeah. And I was like, have a good day. And I walked out and that's when I texted you guys like electronic IDs. We need them.
I was wondering what the story behind this agenda portion was.
I was like, no one less and less people carry their wallets. Everybody carries their phone. We should have IDs on our phone. I mean, it's the thing that connects us the most to who we are than anything else. I mean, it knows more about us than we do. Like, why can't I just show up like a real ID on my phone and have it in the system? You know what I mean? Like, don't make me walk to my car and rant. Makes sense, right?
Yeah, I can see the point
out
there. Yeah, it definitely checks out. I gotta tell you, like, there's certain things that like I kind of like just like having, and like I like having my wallet with me, or like I get in my car, I turn the key. I don't have like a push start. So I don't know.
You know
man.
what? Another thing, like going to the airport, like I don't ever pull out my driver's license. I'm a passport guy.
Yeah.
Carrying a passport, like that's your real ID, your passport. It's not your driver's license that they're coming up with that real ID. That's not even like it can't be your driver's license.
For like 6 years by now. Yeah. Passport definitely seems more official.
But if you have your passport, you don't need a real ID anyway. So it's like the passport is really like, so it's funny though, because you give them your passport and they're just like, sometimes they're confused. I'm like, that's more official than my driver's license.
Yeah, I'm sure eventually there's going to be an option to have like an electronic like driver's licence record. I
almost can guarantee that Europe is doing it right now.
I'm sure there's got to be somewhere. I mean, the same way that I no longer carry like an insurance card in my glove box. Like I just like carry it on my phone, and exactly as you were saying earlier with like your bank cards, you just have it on the phone and tap, and
a little more secure.
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. My AirPods died, but yeah. So I lived in Memphis and worked at a wine shop. And one of the things that like they made us ID everybody. Like I'm on your side, of course, but just to give you maybe a little, I don't know if it's the same in Alabama, but the reason I think that they do that is a little bit because like the the laws if you if you accidentally serve a minor or somebody with a fake ID, like by accident, the clerk and the store get fucked.
It's like a huge fine, right?
Huge fine. The clerk will go to jail.
That's pretty draconian.
So, like, and it's all on camera, so like they'll see, like, if you don't look at the ID as the clerk, and you let the person go, and God forbid there's an agent, for lack of a better word, right outside, like, hey, can I see your ID, or whatever the case, worst case scenario, like, you're toast.
And then I know
that's sort
like,
of the reason that they.
Yeah, that makes sense, because I know even sometimes like police forces will have like they'll like have minors go into places to like try to buy, just to see if they're following the protocol.
Deception.
Exactly. Because I know, I think most
Extortion.
It might be nationwide. I'm sure it probably is, but they always have those signs up there, like, if you appear to be under the age of 40, like, we will ID you.
Well, she said that too. She said, if you're anything under 35, you gotta ID you. And I was like, you have to ID everybody, miss. I was like, I don't care how old they are. You have to check their ID, because I had to go get it. So there is no exceptions here. It doesn't matter how old the other guy who was bagging, he's like, would you ID me? And I was like, she better. I was like, she has to. She just said she has to.
If my day's going to be ruined and everybody else is going to be too.
No, it's not ruined. It's just you have to go through the hoops. So I was like, everybody has to get ID'd, miss.
This is bowling. There are rules. Exactly.
Those are the rules. If we're going to stick by them, we're going to stick by them. What if she doesn't check my ID and I'm of age? Penalty or no penalty?
If she does not check your ID and you're of age, and a agent is, God forbid, on the outside of the storage and asks you for your ID and you don't have it, is that what you're saying?
I still think the store would get burned for that. Yeah.
Like, so they let me buy, they didn't check my ID, and then I go out and I show my ID to the guy and I pass.
I think there's probably like a warning system, if I recall.
Like a lesser fine, perhaps.
Right. I'm sure they wouldn't get in trouble unless they do it all the time. But at the same time, they're not doing anything illegal except not following.
Other than not
guidelines.
checking the person's ID,
right.
Which is, the
not
rule. Following the rules.
I don't care if you're over 35, you have to show.
Yeah. No, wild.
So
wild. Coming in the walker.
Yeah.
Electronic IDs, I think that it would help. And
I'm in.
Right. I mean, it does. That definitely makes sense. I was opposed, not opposed, but like, the Apple ID, I was like, I like paying with my card, but now it's like so easy, so nice.
Yeah, totally. Well, boys, this has been a fantastic Wine Wednesday with you.
Yes, it has.
And just think, this is only our third podcast episode.
Has Drew really been? Right. Do we check that?
I've been on more times.
Drew's been on more than 3, but this is
right.
the third episode of his show.
I would love to have him on a little more often. It's fun having
we can't go 14 months again without having him.
No, that's strange.
That's strange. So long.
Yeah,
that's wild.
It's egregious.
Yeah. Well, boys, I mean, to put a bow tie on it, any last thoughts? Any last ruminations?
Drew, do you have a song of the week that you'd like to share with everybody?
I do. Candy by McGee.
Candy by McGee.
By McGee. Yes, please.
Just because you like it.
Well, yeah, that's why I'm sharing it.
Perfect. Chris, song of the week. What do you have?
I want to hear yours first, just for the sake that
you're searching.
I'm searching with my good eye closed.
I'm searching too, but I'm going to go with the song Regulate by Smooth Jazz All-Stars. And Chris, this is the song. This is the song of the little gnome in the woods that Elijah sends to us.
Oh, okay.
And funny story, we were playing disc golf at Nockamixon. Drew, I don't know if you know Lake Nockamixon in Quakertown or Doylestown, but we were playing with Mac Blythe over Thanksgiving. Shout out to Mac. And me and Elijah, we played. So I always, every time I show up to disc golf, most things, I have a entry song, and I turn my music real loud. I put my windows down because it's my entry. And so we pulled up, and me and Elijah, and I had to put that song on. We had to Shazam it and figure it out because it was just a part of this clip, because we didn't know what it was. You know what I mean? It was just a part of this. So we're playing it as we walk up, and Mac goes, "Is that Regulate?" by Smooth Jazz All Stars? And I was like, what the? I was like, yeah, that's
Mythical
exactly
pull.
it. I was like, oh my, I was like, I should have known that you would know this. This is incredible.
Yeah,
and sure enough, like, he pulled through. It was like the most fantastic thing. I couldn't believe it. Me and Elijah were blown away.
That is brilliant.
Great song.
Awesome.
What a pull, man. My song of the week is going to be Kool-Aid and Frozen Pizza by Mac Miller.
Kool-Aid and Frozen Pizza.
Yeah, early Mac from the Kids album.
Beautiful.
Yeah, man. Definitely been in the Mac Miller zone recently as well. Been in a lot of zones all the time.
Oh yeah, loading zone to loading zone.
Everything was very simple. Drew, we said it at the beginning. I'm going to say it again. Happy birthday, brother. It is a pleasure and a privilege to know you, and I'm glad that we got to spend some time together as you get ready to go into the birthday zone and the voluntary kidnapping.
Into the birthday zone, man. Yes, the volunteered man napping or something like that, whatever it's called. But hey, boys, thank you so much for having me, and thank me for having you. Chris, always a pleasure. Ethan, I love you. I love you, Chris.
Love you, boys.
Good night, guys.
Rock and roll.
Rock and roll, everybody. Thank you. We'll see you next week, same time, same place, for another episode.